News Now investigator Kyle Paine is here to talk about why, Kyle.
Ron, Chris, the whole point of the Ignite was to pay some of those amateur athletes who wanted to go pro but weren't ready for the NBA. Now, college athletes can get paid to play and have been since 2021. Some think it should have been this way for a long time. Others aren't so sure.
The elite quarterback Patrick Mahomes is in the middle of a 10-year, $450 million contract with the NFL.
So we went out and got that thing.
A bona fide football MVP.
I really want that personal price plan.
He's also an all-star pitchman. But before he became immortal, Mahomes played college ball at Texas Tech.
Gonna take a shot to the
where he threw 93 spectacular touchdowns in 3 seasons as a Red Raider and made $0. That's because he graduated a whole 5 years before the NCAA lost a lawsuit that led to universities being forced to pay student athletes for the use of each of their names, image, and likeness. It's called NIL, and it's one of the hottest topics on campus, in court, and even here in Las Vegas at Super Bowl 58.
How do you handle the NIL going now in college sports?
That's our 8 News Now sportsman, Ron Futrell, with the sports super agent, Lee Steinberg, the inspiration for Tom Cruise's award-winning performance in the 1996 movie Jerry Maguire.
Help me, Rod. Help me help you.
The real Steinberg says because of NIL, he starts dealing with young athletes when they're in high school.
If you don't sign a player at 17, you may never see him again.
Part of that is because now, like never before in its 120-year history, some of these kids, the athletes, can not only name their price, they can go play wherever they want, whenever they want. Number 2 in the blue here is Jeremy Bernard, who started his successful amateur football career right here in Henderson at Liberty High School. From Henderson in 2020, Bernard committed and enrolled at the University of Washington to play wide receiver in 2021. But changed his mind a week later and ended up playing his freshman year as a Michigan State Spartan, only to enter the so-called transfer portal a year later to play for his original choice, UW. But when the head coach there took over for legendary head coach Nick Saban in Alabama, Bernard and 2 other Washington Huskies went with him.
Taking a shot, it's caught!
Transferring is a big deal in college sports now, but not quite as big as getting paid to play.
Everybody knows, including the NC2A, this is pay for play.
Bill Paulus graduated in UNLV's first ever class of hotel administration, around the time Stanford's Jim Plunkett won the Heisman. And Paulus went on to build casinos all over the world. In simpler days, he was a booster. He was around back in the days when college athletes couldn't make a dime.
You couldn't even take him to lunch.
Now, Paulus figures out how to raise money to pay UNLV athletes to come play for the Rebels, as part of the Friends of UNILV. As part of what in NIL parlance is called a collective, which are companies established to create financial opportunities for athletes. Often stacked with large staffs and budgets, they are basically free from NCAA control. And they come up with as many ways as they can to put money in their athletes' pockets.
Most people think that athletes get way more than they actually get.
NIL-related income right now for a Power 4 football player, for example, is about $40,000 a year.
40 grand plus potential sponsorships and the value of their college education, which can get up near 150 grand, says Jeff Cravens, a digital sports executive. Cravens, a year ago, founded Total Player Value, which does data analysis on NIL for his clients, schools, conferences, and businesses who want to get into this industry. An entirely new field, but a game that boils down to bucks.
I think this is pretty straightforward, Kyle. I think, there's just a big bucket of revenue generated by college athletics.
inside they go to Hawkins.
And those athletics, like the March Madness basketball tournament, add up to billions in TV revenue, which is part of the reason the courts have decided the athletes deserve their payday.
They are professional athletes, getting professionally paid. It's not going away.
Legendary and controversial coach Rick Pitino has coached 7 NCAA Final Four basketball teams in Providence, Kentucky, and Louisville. And after his new team, St. John's, lost recently to number 1 UConn, Pitino tore into the NCAA and NIL.
We need to stop all the hypocrisy of NIL. We need to stop it because they can't stop it. Whether I'm for it or against it doesn't matter.
But Pitino says it matters that the colleges get this right, especially because of a handful of lawsuits against the NCAA. Most recently, a federal antitrust lawsuit filed by perennial powerhouse universities Tennessee and Virginia, claiming the NCAA isn't letting their athletes earn enough NIL money.
They're going to get taken to court every time they try to make a rule.
And there's another federal case in California that could put the NCAA on the hook for a potential multi-billion-dollar payout to former and current athletes in front of the same judge whose previous rulings paved the way for NIL to begin with. And last week, the National Labor Relations Board ruled that all 15 members of Dartmouth's men's basketball team are employees of the school, clearing the way for those Ivy League players to unionize, which would allow them to negotiate their salaries, their working conditions, practice hours, and travel, and also arguably means they could be fired, putting college athletics into a free-for-all that the famous coach,
It's not going away.
the number cruncher,
I think they'd be a lot better off if they just accepted that.
and the UNLV booster can all agree.
We've got to sit down and come up with some solutions.
A lot of those lawsuits could end up defining how name and image likeness works going forward, and even whether the NCAA as we know it survives. A $5 billion judgment against them in that antitrust suit would probably shut the NCAA down. And this week, a judge ruled in that Tennessee-Virginia lawsuit that college recruits can now negotiate NIL deals before they even enroll in a school, Ron.